Hi, everybody. My name is Niels. This is Roger. As introduced, Roger's working for Hermes. As you can see, I'm working for Leafree. I'm the founder and CEO of Leafree. I don't know whether many of you know Leafree. I guess that most of you know Hermes and is aware of what Hermes is doing. Maybe Roger, you can say just a few words about Hermes. For my part, about Leafree, just a few quick words. We are a same-day delivery platform on the market now for 3 years, doing same-day delivery and time window delivery for big retailers like Amazon, Zalando, HelloFresh, and Rewe. And we are here today to tell you a few insights about how we got together and how it's like working with a big corporate as a startup and vice versa.
Yeah, well, Hermes is a parcel delivery company in Germany, the second largest, which is not state-owned or partly state-owned. I'm responsible at Hermes for strategy and innovation. What we do is to develop partnerships as well as startups, and that's why we are here today to tell about our experiences in working together.
Right, exactly. So what we wanted to tell you today is how we first got together, what were the learnings, what were the hurdles, etc. So why don't we start off? And Roger, why don't you tell the audience how we first met, how we got together?
Yeah, within our innovation roadmaps, we identified same-day delivery very early as a very attractive business area for us. And so within our exploration of the market, we talked to a lot of startups who were in this field. And also finally, we got in contact with Leafree. And one day we ended up in this nice beer garden of Tim Melzer at the Bullerei in Hamburg and had a nice meeting there. And after a few beer, we decided to talk more into detail. So it sounds like a bit of a stereotype to meet in a cafe or a beer garden, but in our case it was a bit like this. And so it would be interesting, Niels, what you were thinking after our first meeting when we met, and how did you perceive Hermes as a potential investor?
Yeah, tricky question. Well, we first met at the Sun Deck. I don't know what the company was called. We were at an event and we met over a couple of beers first. And I knew Roger and I also knew Hermes from the past. And I had a certain picture in my mind of Hermes as a logistics company, as a market player in Germany. At that time, not the most positive image, but the impression I had from talking and working during the first couple of days with Roger was quite positive. So quite a different picture of that company than the one I first had in my mind. Of course, we were at first a little afraid suddenly talking to such a big corporate. I mean, we were aware at that time that we would most probably be talking to financial investors, maybe also to strategic investors, but suddenly you were sitting there, and at this point in time when we were having dinner at Bullerei, there was a third party, somebody from the retail side involved, also an extremely big corporation. And for me, it was not an easy situation at first, talking to such a big corporate. And of course, in the very beginning, you are a little afraid of what will be coming. But as I said, from the talks with Roger, the image of that company changed quite quickly in my mind. So it was actually quite nice talking to you, especially because we met most of the times over a couple of beer or a steak. Well, Roger, first official elephant meeting, right? That was quite interesting when sitting on the 6th floor of Otto Group. So as most of you know, Hermes belongs to the Otto Group. And then we were sitting on the 6th floor of the old Otto Group building on the Vorstandsflur. And when you leave the elevator, you have a guard in front of you. asking you where you want to go and who you're meeting with. So quite a special situation. And then you're suddenly sitting there in a meeting room with extremely important people, like guys from the executive board at Otto Group. So that was at the latest then the point where I thought, well, this is now moving into a very severe and very fundamental direction for us, where it could be really moving into a beneficial situation for all of us. So Roger, after we sorted out that strategic partnership could be beneficial for both of us, when we had that first meetings on the top level executive floor, what was your role during the discussions?
Yeah, as I was coordinating the partnership with Leafery, I was also heading the investment negotiations. And so most of you probably would imagine that it's the toughest job, or the hardest would be to drive the negotiations with Leafery. But my toughest job was to deal with all the various C-levels within the Otto Group and to convince them of the investment. And because it touched a lot of principal questions of Hermes and the Otto Group, so there was kind of a imagination of let's go into it with a very low investment, but let's take all the rights we can get, and so we won't allow a drag along, for instance. And so that was kind of tough to convince the Otto board of that they had to change their mind, and took quite a lot of time. And one day, one of the board members told me, after a tough negotiation, that to me you seem like the advocate of Leafery. And I took it as a compliment, but I think the sense of this statement was a bit different of the board member. So, and what was your imagination after these talks at the Otto headquarters?
Yeah, as I said, quite tricky discussions, because you're, I mean, I'm personally coming from the Lufthansa Group, so I was somehow familiar of working with, big corporates and such structures, but suddenly you're sitting there in the role as a startup entrepreneur, and you're talking to the executive board member of the Otto Group. So suddenly it becomes quite a tricky situation for you, and then you're starting to ask yourself, is this really right? So do we want to continue sitting in those kind of meeting rooms, talking to those kind of people? Wouldn't maybe a situation with a pure financial investor like venture capital guys, wouldn't that be better for us? Is this really the right direction, moving along now with a strategic investor? But on the other hand, we saw the potential benefits of the cooperation. So on the one hand side, having Hermes as a logistics company with a very strong network and a very great customer access on the German and international market on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, having the Otto Group in the background as potential investor, being a really, really big fish worldwide in the whole retail game. And in the end, during that talks, it gave me quite a confident feeling and positive thoughts that it would absolutely make sense to move forward with you guys. So during the discussions then, as I said, I was working for Lufthansa before. Leafery belonged to Lufthansa before. We had to do a management buyout, extracted the company from the Lufthansa Group before we did the first big round with Hermes. So Roger, as the term sheet, the very intense term sheet negotiations went along, was there, within the discussions, was there any crucial milestone for you?
Yeah, I think the most crucial milestone for me was when we convinced Benjamin Otto to also invest with his private equity fund into Leafery, because at that stage that opened the door for the management buyout of Leafery out of Time Matters Group. I don't know if you have mentioned it before. Leafery used to be a part of Time Matters, an international same-day delivery company. And So that's when it all started, and I think that gave the spark for it. And and then term sheet negotiations started, and I will never forget one word, and I think and for a long time, which is called it's a markup, because it seemed like we ended up in a never-ending markup story of the term sheet. I don't know. Probably it's part of it, but why do you think was the negotiation was so tough, Niels?
Well, I think at that stage there were too many parties involved. We had us as the founder team, then we had Hermes as a strategic investor, as a logistics player. We had the Otto Group as basically a big retailer on the German and international market. We had, as Roger said, we had Benjamin Otto at the table as well. We had guys from the executive board. At that time, when we still belonged to the Lufthansa Group, we also had a private equity fund, which was one of our seed investors, and there was a guy from that private equity fund sitting at the table as well. And now, imagine us sitting there in the room you just saw before on the slide, with so many people from so many different angles, having so many different agendas. So you might imagine that this becomes suddenly a very, very tricky situation, because all of the different people have different things they want to achieve, and the nature of their targets were completely different from one another. So for example, we as a founders team, we had the goal to keep the company as independent as possible, in order to have it moving quickly, developing products very fast, etc. Then you had the private equity guy, wanted to maximize his profit when exiting the company. And then you had the strategic investors, one with the logistics direction and one with the retail direction. So I think that was the basic reason why it became also complicated. And I think one of the most important learnings was that you, as a startup entrepreneur, as the one who has founded the company and the one who knows where the company is moving in what direction, that you tell the people you're talking to exactly what your boundaries are, and what are ways you would be willing to move into, and what are things you're certainly not going to do. So what are your fixed limitations, in order to tell everybody from the very beginning what can be discussed and what is completely off the table. I think that was very important.
Yeah, I think one learning for us as well was you have to define very clearly at the beginning, as a corporate, what kind of role you want to play. Do you want to play a role as a strategic investor, or as a VC, a financial investor? And looking back, I think the role at the beginning wasn't very much clear. No, it's like I mentioned before. Actually, we wanted to play a role like a financial investor with all strategic rights, and that doesn't work. And so this is kind of my advice for a corporate, to make a clear point at the beginning what kind of role you want to play within an investment of a startup. And so I think you also might have other advice for startups when they deal with corporates.
Yeah, as I said before, make very sure that you know what you want to do, and really think hard about, is this the right investor? It's sometimes not that easy, and sometimes you don't know what will be showing up along the way. There might be opportunities you don't see in the very beginning, but try to think through the process. So is this moving into a right direction? And if you have figured out what that direction could be, then involve the people you are talking to, and make very clear what your goals are, and check out whether those goals are in line with their goals, or could be put in line with their goals, or if this is a situation which cannot work on the long run. And what we in the end did is we sat together with those guys in detail, and we shared our vision of the company. Hermes backed that up. Otto Group said, yes, we see that exactly in the same way. And that was then the basis of our first big financing round.
You have to watch a little bit your time, Niels.
Yeah, that's right.
Advice from a corporate.
Advice from a corporate, right, Roger? So Maybe an interesting question. We have a competitor on the market. It's called tiramisu. And Roger, what was the basic reason you chose us and not tiramisu?
Well, I think for us it was just the perfect fit. And in the end, I believe that the trust in management is the crucial point for every investment you do. And we, during all those negotiations, we got a very strong feeling of trust in you, in the founders. And it was just a very good fit, and how we call it in Germany, the chemistry was right. And I also think you had the better business model. Like I said before, we explored the whole same-day delivery scene in Germany and had talked to a lot of companies, but I think your business model was much superior.
Okay, and talking about the business model, what do you think, or what did you think would be the most important benefits for you, and what turned out to be the biggest benefits of working with us?
Well, the biggest benefit for us was to get access to a new market, same-day delivery. In our business, we have a core business of next-day delivery, and it's very hard to build an add-on business model of same-day delivery because it works in totally different frameworks. And so we got access to a new business model. And also for us, it was very interesting to get access to a completely new culture and working methods and driving smart and digital business models quite quickly forward. And so we also had kind of a culture clash. I think you can also maybe tell about this a little bit, because you guys were kind of the new kids on the block suddenly, and everybody wanted to talk to you, and you had to go to every management meeting, and so probably to share this as well.
Yeah, quite an interesting situation, because suddenly, just start like that, in the very beginning, everybody's not really sure what this is all about. Who are those guys? What are they doing? But at the point, or from the point where they have understood what this is all about, then suddenly everybody wants to talk to you, and you're invited, like he said, to a global management meeting in Travemünde, and you're invited to advisory board sessions and steering board committees and Geschäftsführungssitzung and whatsoever. And like everybody from all different units wants to talk to you and wants to do things with you, because they realize that they can put new projects way faster on the road when doing it with you than doing it in-house. So what was a very important learning for us, especially during the last year after the second financing round with Hermes, after the capital raise we had, was that you really need to focus on your business, and you need to learn how to say no to people, because you try in the beginning to be nice to everybody, and you want everybody to just like you and get in touch with you, but in the end you have to learn how to say no, and to just make clear that you have a very straight agenda, that you have a limited budget, and that you need to focus on your own tasks. And if you don't do that, then you end up in very long discussions, and you're losing your focus, right? So, Roger, capital raise, I just mentioned that, 67%. What do you think are the future opportunities?
Yeah, 67, true, no fake.
Yeah.
I would say, and well, to keep it short, for us it's a great opportunity to build a winning set of local logistics solutions, urban logistics solutions, and so we believe that your same-day delivery product is a perfect fit to our core business portfolio, and it adds very well. So.
Right. How much time left?
And
kind of over. I would like to come to last questions if anybody wants to know anything. Where's the speaking cube? Oh, it's here. Does anybody have a question? Seems like you've been doing really well here, because there are no questions left.
So then we get an additional 10 minutes.
Not really, I give you 2.
Like 2. Well, yeah, Roger, would you do that again, honestly?
Yeah, I think we would definitely do it again. We would do it different this time. And it's also always a learning. I mean, every investment round is different. I think we can also be friends from the topic of this presentation now. Friends and live happily together ever after as friends. But I think there would also be some learnings in it for you as well, I think. And so we could be quicker next
Yeah,
time.
we could definitely be quicker, and I mean, this is maybe just something you have to accept when working with a corporate, that some things take a little longer than when working with a venture capital company. But I personally, I talked about this quite a couple of times with my co-founders, and we said we would definitely do it again. Why? Because it's a totally different way of building a company. It's a slower process, and at some points also a more tricky process, but it's completely different than when you're working just with somebody who gives you capital and puts a lot of pressure on the company and, you know, maximizing the value. And when you're working with a strategic investor, you're more working on the business model itself, on the core of the business, and not so much just being focused on the financial side. So,
And there's also a last learning. Startups need more talking time in discussion rounds there than corporates.
happens. All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.